Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking, and this is Vikingjarl. Vikingjarl is an awesome game for 2 to 4 people in which each person is going to take over the role of an aspiring Jarl, an aspiring Viking leader, trying to make a name for themselves and then take over their Viking kingdom. To show and prove yourself, you have to go out and travel and explore and go on like raids to gather up and pillage coin. You can do trading with your allies, which will allow you to build up settlements, and also you're going to be fighting each other as well as your armies and your longships meet as they travel around Europe and even further out towards like Vinland and places like that as well. The game is a victory point game. So you have, before the game starts, you're going to set a victory point total that everybody's going to aspire to reach. The first one to reach that will win the game. I am a sucker for Viking games, as you know if you've watched my channel for a long time. There are some Viking games that kind of really draw out the theme, like Blood Rage, which came out a few years ago, was a really cool Viking themed game. Now, I didn't really feel like I was a Viking, but this is like one of those games where it is very historically based in the Viking Age, and that's something that I've read extensively about. I've watched lots of documentaries about it, and I just like kind of, because of the fact that I am of mostly a Norwegian stock, I've always just really enjoyed the idea of these like brutish people riding these big giant ships and going and pillaging towns and what have you. Which, as I've researched more and more and read more and more about Vikings, I found out that they were kind of warlike in ways, but they were actually more peace loving than we give them credit for. But anyway, regardless, let me show you how Vikingjarl is played. This is a marvelous historical based I don't want to say simulation, because it definitely has some very deep roots in like thematic Euro world, if you will. But obviously, the creator, and as I show you how to play the game, you'll see that the creator of the game went to great lengths to make sure that the Viking culture and the Viking accuracy definitely presented itself and exists within this. I don't think you see one horned helmet in any of the pictures at all, which, of course, as one of those sad things I found out was, sadly, the Vikings did not have horns on their helmet. I remember reading an article once. They said you would never put a horn on your helmet because it would give your opponent something really easy to grab onto while they're trying to cut your throat, which I was like, that makes sense. But anyway, Vikingjarl, let's show you how to play. This is Vikingjarl, and I'm going to show you how the game is played. So as you can see, here is the map where you are going to be directing both your boat and your army. And on this map, there's a few interesting things I want to point out. For one, they have several different towns. Now, some of these towns, like these right here, these are towns that you can pillage. They don't change ever in the game. You can't ever settle them. You can't take them over. You use them basically as kind of a resource to attack, to hopefully get some coins out of them. The way they work is that if there's like a coin, one coin on there, after you successfully attack them, and I'll show you attacks here in just a little bit, after you successfully attack them, each remaining Viking that you have in your army that attacked them that's still alive will get a coin. The ones that have 2 coins, you guessed it, each remaining Viking will have 2 coins left over. You might notice that there are like these kind of like, there's this 3 and there's a 1 here. That is the defenses that particular town has, and the number of armies that they'll have protecting it if you do decide to attack them. Also, London and Paris both have a star on them. That means that if you successfully pillage them, you'll also get a victory point for doing so. Victory points are obviously the key to win the game. There is a way to play it like a certain number of turns, but the standard game is that all the players to begin the game will pick a certain number of victory points that they're going to have to reach, and the first person to reach that total will win the game. But 11 is about an hour, and then as you go up on the victory points, it gets incrementally more. We have played games to the full 27 victory points, and those took about 2.5 hours to finish. And also, but kind of a very rewarding way to play the game as well because of the epic nature of it. Alright, now going back to the towns, as you see, you're going to see towns that have these white shields on them, and you're going to see towns that have these green shields on them. The green shield towns are trading places. Now, and also these tokens around them are placed randomly at the end of the game, both for the green and also for the white. You'll notice that there is a symbol for this two-tone green and white shield on there, whereas over here there is just a single green. So the game does tell you which type of shield to put on them. Now on the backs of each one of these shields, it'll tell you like what you can trade for. So in this case, this you can trade for lumber and mead, and once they're discovered, you turn them over and they remain like that. So the ones with the single, you can see, like here, you can just trade for iron. That's the only thing that you can trade for there. You're going to be trading at these locations because you need the resources, which are going to be represented by these cubes. You're going to need those resources to create settlements. So where do you create settlements? Well, you're going to be creating settlements on these locations that have these white shields. You can also, and you don't have to do this before you settle them, you can also attack them. When you attack them, you turn them over, and it'll tell you the number of defenders, and it'll also tell you the number of victory points that they're going to be worth. If you successfully attack the town, you will actually keep this token, so you can see the victory points that you got for it, and then and it's gone. So now it just remains that token, that spot there, and people are going to know that they can settle that particular town. I should mention that you can't ever attack the same place twice. So you can't just like if you have a really good army, you can't park outside, Paris or London and just sit there and attack it in successive turns. You do have to wait a turn in between those. And yeah, I mean, technically you could have an army that's like sitting outside of London and you attack it and wait 2 turns. But as your army is sitting there, that's like a golden opportunity for somebody else to come along and attack your army. And because that is a very viable strategy to get victory points and also take any plunder that your army possibly has that is there. So for settlements, you have to have one of each resource, and then you get to basically, if you're the person that sells it, what you'll do is you will look you'll take one of these tiles that actually shows the different victory points for that tile. Like here is the port of Man, and so if you did that and you took it over as you would get as a settlement, you would get this. It would be worth 5 victory points. Now, when that happens, and I should mention too, and this is kind of a recurring thing, like, here's the Isle of Man. On the back of each one of these tiles, the creator of the game has taken the time to make sure that, kind of give a little background and history for each one of these locations. And when I talk about, like, the cards and stuff like that, I'll even reference that as well. So, it's something that's pretty cool that I'm impressed that the creator of the game actually took the time to make sure that, you get a little history lesson along with the game. Also, you might have noticed this big giant, like, the Midgard Serpent here. This is not just dressing for the look of the game. You can't travel through this when you're moving. So it's kind of a way, like, to kind of show, how, like, because this is Iceland here, and Iceland's a fair distance away, from London. So it's kind of one of those things to put on there to make it realistic, as far as having to go around it and traveling there to get there. So it takes a little bit more time to reach that location. The other thing, two things here, there's both Vinland and Cirkland, and the first person to get to these locations gets to take these victory point tokens and add them to their victory points. You can't settle those, but you can be the first person to travel there and get those points. Alright, so now that I've kind of gone over everything that you see here and given you that little overview, what do you actually do on your turn? Well, each person is going to start in this location over here, and they're going to have, this represents their army, and this represents their ship. Now, their army can be carried in their ship, but the army can also travel by itself. So I have gone ahead and I've just set up a 4-player game, and I've taken this my player board here, and let me just show you like a close-up of another player board without picking up that one. So here you have, this is your ship, and each one of these shields here for these 4, those can either carry a Viking or they can carry a resource cube, one of the plunders. So like if you've stolen it from somebody else who already bought it, gone to a trading post and purchased those, you're going to place those in your ship. This right here is your army. So if you're on there, and this is not the yellow token, but you would, if the army was on your ship, you'd place this little army token to show that it's on there, and then this would be your army. And once again, just like these shields, these can either have a Viking in each spot, or they can have a plunder. They can have one of the resource cubes on those locations. Also on this, it does give you, as far as like how your turn goes, what each one of these towns can be done, and also like goods, how much they are, how much it costs to recruit Vikings and things like that. So it's a really good player board, and it does kind of give you all the information that you need to be able to take your turn. This is your home port in Kopang. Anytime you go back here, you are able to recruit Vikings for free. You can recruit up to 3 Vikings there. You can also recruit Vikings for free in any settlements that you've created by yourself. Normally, in trading posts, you can recruit Vikings, but they cost 1 silver each. So, it's always nice if you have settlements, or if you can make it back to Kopang, you can have it there. Also, both in Kopang and also in your settlements, you can, because of the fact, like going and raiding, you can leave your resources there and leave Vikings there to protect them. Because you never want to leave like a resource, like if this is your settlement, you wouldn't want to leave resources there waiting to be stolen. You'd want to leave Vikings there to protect you and try to like defend that against anybody that would want to come and show up and take what you have. But alright, so that being said, how do you do a turn? Well, at the beginning of your turn, what you're going to do is the first thing you do is you're going to draw a Saga card. And I'll talk about Saga cards here in just a little bit. But you draw a Saga card, you have to do that. And even if you don't like the Saga card, you can have up to 3 in your hand. At the end of the turn, if you have more than 3 cards, you have to discard one. After you've done that, you're going to do either movement action or action movement. And you get to do that for both your army and your ship, if you want or if you can. Your ship can move 3 spaces. Your army can move 2. At the very beginning, as a free move, well, and anytime you're in like your army is in like a town and your ship is in the town, the army can get on the ship for free and then be carried along, and then it can disembark when it does his action. So, for example, at the very beginning, you have these 2 together. They could move together. If I said, you know what, on my turn, what I want to do is I want to get up here and we're going to attack this town. I have my army, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unload them here to attack. What does it say? It says Haltland. So I want to get the victory points for doing that. This is actually a good way to show you how combat works. So this would be 1. To leave is 1 movement. Another is this, and then a third is to actually go into the city. And now I can unload my my army, and my army can go ahead and attack. So we're going to turn this over because we don't know what it is, and it has 1 defender, and I've got 2 in my army. So whenever you do an attack, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to take, and this is like the battle line. You're going to take and fill out the attackers, and then defenders, as long as it isn't another player, you just go ahead and put the 1 defender in there. Attackers use red dice. Defenders use green dice. And on each die, there are symbols of this helmet. The helmet means a hit, and there are symbols of these shields, and the shield is just a miss. The red dice have more hits on them, whereas the green dice have, well, the green dice have two hits of the 6 sides, and these have 3 hits of the 6 sides. So the way combat works is you're going to roll the dice. Let's see what I get here. I would get 2 misses. That's not good. And then we're going to go ahead and roll for this, and also miss. Now, after you've done a round of combat, you can do a retreat, but otherwise it just continues. To retreat, you have to be able to retreat to a location that you are safely can retreat to. In this case, I have my boat, so I could retreat if I didn't want to attack. But we're gonna press on because I feel like I'm gonna get a helmet now. There we go. I got 2 helmets, and let's see what we get here. All right, so they got a helmet. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see. So the way this works is you're just going to compare dice, and you compare them in rows. So in this case, we have a hit and a hit and a hit. This one doesn't matter because we're only going to be comparing these 2 here. And so we have a hit and we have a hit here, and both of these hits, they don't cancel each other out, but they're both going to kill one. So I would lose one of my armies, he would lose that defender, and then I would have this Viking would be dead, and I place them into my supply. I'm going to be able to take this particular token. I'm going to place it there to show that I have that 1 victory point, and I'm going to increase that. Now, if I had the resources, if I had one of each resource, because maybe I'd gone to, Reeb, and I've gone whatever to get the resources necessary to build a settlement there, I can't build it on the same turn. I don't have that as an option. I mean, you can attack and then, try to settle it as well. You can wait for your next turn, and you can do so. So the way that works, pretty simple. If I wait until my next turn, I had all 3 of these resources, I turn them in, then what I would do is I'm going to go ahead and look for Hotland in this pile here. There we go. So I have Hotland, and it's going to be worth 4 victory points, and I'm going to increase that to 4. I also am going to take one of my symbols here, and I'm going to place that on there to show everybody else that I have it. Now, I don't want to leave it undefended because I don't want somebody to come in. So I'm going to take these 2 Vikings, and I'm going to leave them on that location to defend that spot. Now, what happens if somebody else comes along and wants to attack me and wants to take that over? So if at a later date, let's say some player I'm playing with, and I've moved off, and maybe my army is moving is moving towards Paris to attack. My ship is over here. It might see the way it works. And a lot of times when I played it is that I've used my ship to do my trading and moving around. Like having maybe like one army in the ship to kind of protect it. Though it is interesting to note that you can attack another ship that doesn't have any armies in it. So it sometimes behooves you not to have any armies in your ship, because then other ships can't attack you, and you can kind of move freely, just going on trading missions, things like that, using it as a ferry to move your army around and what have you. I also, as I said, armies can move 2 spaces. I want to actually show you that there are these little tiny red lines right here. And if there's those red lines, your army can cross those. So they don't need a ship to do so. But anyway, going back to here. Let's say, the blue player shows up and decides to attack my hometown there. And let's say I've got those 2 defenders. Let me just remove him. I got my 2 defenders in that location like so. And let's say he's got 4 that he's going to attack me. Now, the way this works is that he's going to get those 4 dice. Let's roll those 4 dice and see what he gets. And I've only got 2 defenders. So he got 1 hit, which is actually pretty good. I might be able to do some good damage to him. So let's go ahead and roll those up. And let's go ahead and take these 2. See what we get here. Oh, I got 2 misses, which stinks. So now he's done 1, so we're going to lose one of my guys. And then I'm down to 1 die. Let's see what happens here. I'll just roll all 5 dice at once, see what happens. So I actually got a hit, which is, I was able to do a little bit of damage before it was over. But those 2 hits, we're going to count those. He loses 1, I lose 1, and he's going to get a victory point for successfully defeating me. And he also, what happens with this, is I turn this over and it has that flame on the other side. I lose my victory points for this. You turn it over to show that you don't have those victory points. Now, you might be saying, well, that's a really easy way to take out victory points. Well, all it takes is for, and he moves off to do whatever. All it takes is for you to return to your settlement, and you can flip it back over. And when that happens, you do that, and you can increase it. Now, a couple of you might be saying, well, why would you even bother attacking a settlement if all they got to do is just return to fix it? Because it doesn't cost you any resources to fix it or anything like that. You just return and you put it back together. The reason why is, remember, you're playing to a certain victory point total. So if we were playing to, say, 18, and I was at 16 points, if you knock that out, I'd be down to 12. And I'm going to have to waste valuable time sending my ship back there to rebuild that particular location, time where other players are then going to be able to push towards getting to that victory point total that we've designated before the game. And then the second thing is, as I already kind of mentioned, is this game is like a very frenetic game as far as trying to get your victory points, get them put together, and get them before anybody else does. It's kind of a race in a way, and everything you need to maximize your turn as much as possible to make sure that you don't have any kind of throwaway turns where you're not really doing anything. I'll talk about that more in my final thoughts, but that's a very, very big aspect of this game, is if somebody actually kind of raids you and takes you down, it kind of stinks. Now, if this isn't a game where it's like, oh, I want to attack you if you want to attack me. Yes, there is a little bit of that as far as I want to attack your settlements, don't attack my settlements. But if your armies or navies end up in the same location, and remember, the navies have to have armies in them to actually fight. If they end up in the same, you're going to fight. If armies end up in the same spot on the board, they're going to fight. However, armies can exist in trade towns, and ships can exist in trade towns, with neither of you having to fight. They're kind of considered a neutral area. Alright, so the game is just going to continue until one person reaches that victory point total, and then at that point, the game is over. Now, I mentioned Saga Cards. Now, Saga Cards are cool, and as you probably guessed, the cards are a way for you to kind of break the rules in some way. And so, here, I'll just, here's one that says Pirates. You can loot an opponent in the same sea zone as your ship, not towns. Roll a green die. Your attack is avoided. Or if you roll this, you can take either 1 resource or 3 silver. And you can just take that from the other player. Here is, defense. This saga cancels either the Midgard Serpent or Thor's Hammer. And let me just go ahead and find either of those cards so you can kind of see what those do. Here is the Thor's Hammer card. So this is Thor's Hammer. Anytime on your turn, choose an opponent's ship to be caught in a thunderstorm. They lose your choice of either 1 resource or 3 silver from a ship in the sea zone. So, just little things like that you can adjust things. Here is, Braga. Your army is rested and well fed. Move your army 1 additional land zone. Or use this to cancel the Saga Aegir. So, and I should mention, as I said, that, the designer took the time to, on the backs of each one of these cards, to kind of give a little bit of background. They also, he has little tiny descriptive text to kind of give you, a little information as far as, Odin's Wrath. Choose an opponent to lose 1 victory point. Odin, the Allfather, controls Valhalla and is the wisest and most powerful of the gods. He is often accompanied by his wolves, Geri and Freki, and the ravens, Hugin and Munin. Which, it's kind of just cool that, they've taken the time, just to add those little bits and pieces into the game, and it makes for, in my opinion, like, just because I really like the Viking themed games, that little extra little bit is appreciated by me. That you kind of add that in and tell us a little story. Just a couple another quick one. Holgang. Choose an opponent Choose an opponent that may lose 2 Vikings from either their ship or their army, and applies anywhere. Roll 1 green die, and then you could possibly lose those Vikings. So, I mean, these are just, as I said, ways that you can kind of mess with people, change things, and there's even cards that help out trade. So play this when your ship or army is in a trade town. You get 1 free resource of your choice. So, the game has a progression. This isn't a game where you're going to be earning income. You're not earning your silver coins, which, you can see right over there. You don't earn those like on a regular basis. Like if you settle a town, it doesn't give you free coins. You have to go out and take them. You have to make sure you're going to these towns and raiding them, taking those coins, and then you're going to be taking those coins and you're going to be delivering them to these trade towns to get those resources and what have you. Now, you don't have to do settlements, obviously, to win the game. You can fight all day long. You can travel to these spots and get victory points for attacking and destroying those towns. You can attack London and Paris over and over again to get that victory point. You can attack the other players and get victory points for attacking them. So you don't have to do settlements. So obviously the settlements with the larger victory point totals, like here's Reykjavik, it's like worth 6. If you are able to do those things, you are probably going to be able to gather a larger number of victory points quicker, by doing settlements. But settlements take longer to do. They a lot more steps. So I've seen people win by just being a marauder, which was me. I decided one time I was just going to play. I'm not going to do settlements. I'm just going to keep attacking and see if I can pull this off. And it was a viable strategy. It worked. Obviously, I won the game. But, by and large, it's like, it's one of those things where I think, building just seems like it's more fun, right? Building settlements, having these different places you can go collect, places where you can drop off your resources, places where you can, get Vikings cheap, things like that. So, but it's up to you how you want to play the game, which is another thing I really like about Vikingjarl. But let me talk about that and a whole lot more in my final thoughts. Oh, there we go. That is the Vikingjarl. So this game's awesome. And the big thing and why I think it's awesome is it does a really good job of making a game out of, like, the heyday of the Viking Age. This was when, they were, like, this big feared group of people that would just show up unannounced at your front door and take everything you owned and hopefully left you with your life, right? It definitely, there's other games like this that have done this, and there's a lot of, almost like war games that I played that are based in the Viking era. And those are fabulous simulations of that, but they are not, like, kind of the concise game that Vikingjarl is. And those are, like I said, simulations. Whereas this is a simulation to a certain extent, but it also makes it a game. Like I said, it is something where you are set up against the other players almost immediately. You are in contention for the victory points that are available on the board, and it is just a race. It is a race to go ahead and grab those settlements. It's a race to go ahead and attack those towns. It is a race to seize and attack the weak person that is just basically begging people to attack them so you can get victory points out of them. It's things like that about this game that make me really enjoy it, because I like games where I'm set up against other players. I think that there's too many games out there that have, like, a simple rule set, but then that's all there is. This is a simple rule set. But because of the fact that I'm actually matching wits with the people that are seated at the table around me, then I actually now have a much more dangerous opponent than I have as far, instead of like trying to figure out the puzzle of the mechanisms of the game. I have to try to figure out what the other players at the table are planning on doing, what they're going to do, where their intentions are, and how am I going to mess up what they're going to be doing? How are they going to try to defend upon what I'm going to do? How can I be, you know, unpredictable and attack them or destroy them in a way they weren't expecting? And so that is where the fun of this game is. And because obviously it's in this Viking world, this realistic Viking world, I should mention, I get a great deal of enjoyment out of, especially the end of the game, when you kind of look and you can kind of see how the board has created itself, which settlements were taken by who, where is my, like, you know, my Viking power centralized. You know, did I win the game? And where are my settlements? Where have I like staked my claim? You know, where are my ancestors? You know, like, remember what I did. The sagas, if you will. So it's kind of a fun thing to go through the whole process of the game, and then at the end just kind of look at it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like back when I used to play like Axis and Allies and other war games like that. Like, not super serious war games, but like war games that were like a game that was still a simulation. I mean, I'm kind of going back to that statement a little bit here. But I was like, at the end of the game, you would kind of look and you would just see and you would remember how everybody moved and how their armies went and what was left and, you know, what had been destroyed and those sorts of things. Same thing with this. You know, it's just kind of fun to have that story, that epic dialogue that you've had throughout the game, and then presenting to the end. Now, if you're looking for, like as I said, like a perfect simulation of this era, it's not going to be perfect in that way. But I think this is one of those things where if you are a fan of the Viking theme, and if you've ever wanted to just pretend to be a Viking leader, and actually like have dudes on a board, have ships moving on that same board, if you wanted to, you know, both be a trader, and also a warrior, and, you know, also an explorer, this is the game that's going to satisfy those itches, and it's going to give you that wonderful narrative that I'm looking for in a game like this. So there you go. That is Vikingjarl. It is amazing. If you are a Viking-themed game fan, this is a must-get. I think you're going to love this game. Yeah, there you go. If you have any questions about it, by all means, ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'm the Untitled Viking, telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. Alright, bye-bye.